Thank you very much. Well, that was all a bit unnecessary, wasn't it? Very nice to be back in London. I lived in London for most of my adult life. Moved down about 4 years ago. We moved down to London, moved down to Hove. Brighton and Hove it's two ends of the same place. There is a rivalry. Brighton regards Hove as being rather posh and middle class, because in Hove, women often pause to put their kebab down before squatting to urinate in the gutter. On a Friday night. And that sort of behaviour is considered a bit la-di-da in Brighton. Stick it in your cleavage like the rest of us, darling. The women in Brighton, actually, to be fair, it is the hen parties who visit. Recreational hen parties come down at the weekend. I know I'm going to sound middle-aged and out of touch. I'm not saying they dress like prostitutes, but seriously, I think if you were a prostitute working in Brighton on a Saturday night, you probably need to wear a badge or something. Actual prostitute, something of that sort. It would be very hard to distinguish yourself through dress alone, I would say that. People are just going to take potluck and probably save a few quid, but... I have 2 children, a boy and a girl, one of each. That is, as I'm sure you're familiar with the format, but... And people say you're very lucky to have one of each, of course, and you do see people having 3rd, 4th, 5th children attempting to complete the set. Please don't get hung up on that. My experience is, it doesn't matter what the sex of the child is. Every child is a burden and a curse. It really makes no difference. Young Edward, he's just turned 3, by which I mean he's reached the age of 3, rather than converted his first lesbians, and he is... He'll do anything for a sticker, that boy, but that's beyond him for a while yet, I think. Looking forward, in fact, to his 3rd Christmas now. Technically his 4th, but the first one he was naughty, so that was that. But he is a bit of a handful. Small boys are. There are times I wish he had been a handful about 4 years ago. That would have saved me a few quid, but it's done now. I'm kidding, of course. I love him dearly. He's like a dog to me. But you have to understand... We go to such lengths to conceal reality for them and to make them live in this fluffy pink cloud all the time. We take them at the weekend now to farms, because we live in Hove and farms are available. These aren't real farms. They may have been farms once upon a time. They're all called things like Sunnyside Farm, Blackberry Farm. They consist of 2 llamas, a lamb, a tractor ride at 5 quid a go, and some vast gift shop full of artisan marmalade and hand-wanked cider you're supposed to get excited about. Kids must be utterly baffled as to how this kind of enterprise can supply the food demands of East Sussex. I certainly am, and I would like to take them to an actual farm one of these days, something that supplies the stuff in their packed lunches on a regular basis, some vast fluorescent lit shed in the middle of nowhere surrounded by barbed wire and Alsatians and full of hobbling abominations of turkey flesh that are unable to support their hormone-inflated bodies on the hideous stumps of their legs as they try desperately to get away from the stench of their own effluent and peck blindly at each other with their stumps of their beaks. That would be an educational day out for the kids. My God, it is hard work bringing up kids and you have so many fears and anxieties. My latest one is the considerable tide of opinion which seems to suggest that all children in this country will be utterly morbidly obese within the next 10 years. The statistics on this are terrifying, and I want to talk about this subject, but it is very difficult to approach through comedy because it's a sensitive subject. Adult obesity too. I'm certainly not going to address the women on this subject because I understand for women body shape and weight gain, it's a far more complex matter. It's to do with slow metabolism and bones and so on, and I understand that. But gentlemen, I think we need to take responsibility. We were all given a bit of a fillip and a bit of encouragement by the Olympics. Let's try and keep this kind of mentality going. The government have made it terrifically complicated now. They've come up with something called the body mass index. You need a calculator to work out if you're fat or not. This is a bit of an old-fashioned British approach, which has stood me in good stead. 5 alarm bells. The first one rings if you look down one evening and realise you can no longer see your belt buckle. If you take action at that point, you'll thank yourself later. It's very easy to correct the fault. Second alarm bell rings if you look down one evening and realise you can no longer see what, for the purposes of this section, I shall refer to as your cock. That is a little more serious. And if you can no longer see your feet, you're in real trouble. And those of you thinking, well, if I can't see my cock, I won't be able to see my feet, ha ha ha. You're exactly the sort of self-deluded fools who are most at risk. The fourth alarm bell rings when you can no longer see your cock in a mirror. Oh yes, they're out there. And the fifth and final bell rings when you can no longer see it with two mirrors and an erection. Now, at that point you're no doubt too busy pleasuring yourself with the folds of your own flesh to worry what the rest of us think, and it's none of my business. Listen, I'm not the police. I don't care what you get up to. Nature has its compensations. All I am saying is it wise as a society that we choose to reward this excessive level of corpulence with subsidised transport. And I'm not talking about the odd bus pass. I'm talking about these three-wheeled electrical obesicles, I call them. I don't know if that is the correct term. You've seen them. Mobility scooters. They were designed for the elderly and infirm, but they have been hijacked recently. Not literally, I hope. My God, that would be a long-winded and tedious crime to watch unfold if it is going on. Somehow they've got hold of them. They look ridiculous. The first one I saw, he was so vast he appeared to be hovering up the street. You can see on the vehicle entirely. He looked like Jabba the Hutt on a magic carpet. I thought, no wonder you put on a few pounds. You've mastered the art of levitation. You're not going to burn off many calories that way. It's only when I saw a wire basket glinting between his thighs, his right trouser leg started flashing orange as he turned into Greg's, I realised what was going on. Anyway, folks, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this evening. I do hope you've enjoyed the evening. I've been Simon Evans. Thank you very much. Good night.